Welcome, everybody. I am so excited to be here today for episode number 2 of my Abundant Authorpreneur video series. And today I am with my wonderful client, Lenore Pearson, and she is the author of the book SELF-ASHORED, which is one of my favorite books that I've read in 2019. I've been recommending it to all of my friends and bought some copies from my friends as well. And it's one of those books that I feel so grateful that I got to be part of the process with Lenore as she was writing it, because it was a book that I needed to read as she was writing it. So every week I would just be waiting for the next chapter because I felt like Lenore had so much to teach me along the journey of reading the book as it was being written. So I'm so excited to talk with her today about her book and the writing process and advice that she has for all of you. So let's just dive right in. Hi.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on this morning. I'm really happy to be talking to you all.
Yes, I'm so all the way from Australia. So I'm in California. Yes. It is currently Friday afternoon where I am, but it's Saturday morning where Lenore is. So we're doing a little bit of a time travel thing here.
It is, and it's pretty cold here this morning. So I'm nice and rugged up in my room.
Yeah, and here it's very hot. So different seasons as well. Yeah. So I wanted to start off by, I know this is your debut book. I am sure you have many more books inside of you, but this is your first book. And maybe you could just tell us a little bit, because I think some people watching might be in a similar position where they really want to write a book, but maybe they're intimidated or don't really know where to start. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about what the process of going from just this idea into a finished book was like for you.
It was actually it was a bit of a whirlwind for me, really. I always felt that I had a book in me. It was on my list of things to do. It was on my bucket list. I wanted to write a book, but at that stage I had no idea what the book was going to be about. And really, I think the catalyst for it was receiving a beautiful email from yourself. You came across one of my blog posts, and because that's probably a good place to start, is I actually started doing a bit of blogging first, just to get a feel for what it was like to write, but also to get a feel for what it was like to put myself out there into the world for people to read my thoughts and feelings. So blogging was actually a really good way to kind of test the water, see how I felt about it, see how my writing was received. And as it happened, out of nowhere, I get this beautiful email from yourself. I think you came across my blog post about postnatal depression, my experience with going through postnatal depression. And I get this beautiful email that, I knew, you get lots of emails from people offering you all these opportunities to, increase people who follow you on social media and boost your business this way and do this and do that. But your email was personal, and you could tell that you had read that blog post and that it meant something to you. And I felt a connection straight away when I got that email. And you said, have you ever thought about writing a book? And I'm like, yes, I have, but I thought it was something way down the track for me. I've got 3 kids, and I thought, there's no way I've got time to write a book now. But I don't know, something inside of me was like, Lenore, these opportunities don't come up every day, and someone has seen the worth in what you write. So you'd be crazy not to jump on this and ride this wave with you. So first bit of advice I can give you is, if you've got someone that can coach you through the process, then have a coach. It was the best thing I think I could have done for myself. I honestly don't know. I don't think I would have known where to start with the whole the whole process. For me, it was just a bunch of ideas that I had written down in a book, and I just kept adding bits and pieces. There was no structure, there was no theme, there was nothing. But once I was able to talk through a few ideas with someone, such as yourself, those ideas started to flow, and it just grew from there. It was amazing, actually, the whole process and how quickly it went.
Yes, you wrote it so fast. Oh, I have so many things I want to say in response. Yes, I love what you were saying about blogging, and I'm so glad that you wrote that blog post, because I was pregnant at the time, and I'd already noticed during pregnancy, just with my hormones and just my emotions going up and down in ways that I had not experienced before. And one of my coaches actually said that I might want to sort of be a little bit proactive and do some reading about things like postpartum depression, or just to kind of prepare myself for what might be in store, because so often we focus so much on pregnancy and giving birth, and we forget to look at what happens after that. Yeah. And so my coach had actually come across your blog, and I forget how she had, but she pointed me towards your blog post. And I just, like you said, you felt a connection from my email. I felt a connection with you right away with your writing in your post. And so much of what I had been reading up till that point was more clinical about postpartum or postnatal depression. And yours was just so real and raw and vulnerable. I just love that about your writing, that I felt like I knew you. So I was a little bit nervous to email you, but I just felt like, just reading it, I felt like it was just the tip of an iceberg. Like, I just felt like there was so much more beneath that post to be written. And so I just was I felt a little nervous emailing you. Like, I thought this lady might think I'm crazy. Like, I'm just out of the blue.
I think you actually wrote that in the email. You said, I hope you don't think I'm crazy, but.
And then when I got your email, you responded very quickly and said, I have been thinking of writing a book. And I still remember our first video call. I just felt so connected with you. And so everyone watching, I think that there are those moments in life where you do feel like that connection with someone, and it can be scary to reach out or to like answer that email or answer the call. And I just think those are moments of like serendipity that it's important to follow through. And now, I mean, we haven't met in person yet, but we will. But I just think of you as one of my dearest friends. I just can't imagine if I hadn't met you.
Me too. The feeling is very much mutual. You just know those people who are just meant to be part of your life, and who've just played such a pivotal role in changing the course of your life, which you did. And that sounds very dramatic, but you really did. You just opened up doors for me I didn't know were there. So forever grateful.
I am so proud of you. So much more I want to say. Well, also, I feel like your book, so when you were just talking about that with people, it makes me think of one of the chapters in your book called The Rare Starfish, which maybe you can talk about a little for people and explain. So Lenore's book, I guess, in a nutshell, we were talking before we started this recording about how it can be difficult sometimes to encapsulate a book you've written in words. So when someone says, well, what's your book about? It sort of can feel like, I don't even know where to begin. I think Lenore's book is such a beautiful mix of a lot of different genres of writing. So it is a memoir about her experiences. It's a self-help book. It even has, I think, some journaling components for the reader to do their own reflection. It incorporates music, quotations, different activities that you can do to feel better in your own life. And basically it's, I think, a book about taking charge of your life and your journey and setting sail in the direction that you wish to go with your life. But one of my favorite analogies that you use is this metaphor about the rare starfish, which you are a rare starfish in my life as well. But maybe you can explain a little bit to people watching what that means.
Yeah, absolutely. So like Dallas said, there's a lot of metaphors in this book. So the whole book is a metaphor for life and the voyage that you go on through life. So this particular chapter, The Rare Starfish, I start off by talking about a trip I took with my family to Fiji, and the ocean was just so clear where we were, and there was starfish everywhere on the seafloor, and I was almost afraid to go in because I was afraid that I'd tread on one. But they were beautiful, and they were all different colours. And there's this particular starfish, that rare starfish. I think they're like nine like a starfish, or there's something like that. But there's a few rare starfish in the world, and they're these beautiful, big, colourful starfish. And as you can imagine, it'd be very rare to find one of these starfish. So I used this as a metaphor for the kinds of people that come into your life. Quite often, we label these people as soulmates, and I think sometimes we overuse that phrase, soulmate. A lot of people think a soulmate is someone that you're meant to spend the rest of your life with, and it's someone you love, and but for me, a soulmate or rare starfish are the people that kind of come into your life and impact your life in some way. They don't necessarily stay for the course of your journey, but they come in, they kind of ruffle things up in a good way, and they kind of change your outlook on life or change the course of your life. So in the same way that if you were to see this rare starfish in real life, the impact would be amazing, and the colours are amazing. It impacts you. So it's the same for these people that come into your life. And it's getting people to appreciate those moments and appreciate those people for who they are and what they bring to your life. Like I said, there are some people in my life who are no longer really part of my life, but at some point they changed the course of my life in a good way. So that's who I refer to as a rare starfish. Dallas is for sure one of my rare starfish, because she definitely changed the course of my life and my outlook on life. So, my intention for the book was that I hoped it changed one person's life, but in the process it changed my life as well. So,
It changed my life, and I think I needed to read it. I think I needed to work with you to write it, because I needed to read it while you were writing it. I couldn't wait for it to come out, because I needed it. I think just during my pregnancy, I had a lot of emotions of anxiety, and just it's a big change. And so every week you would send me your chapter, and it just always felt like exactly what I needed to read at that time. And I would think about your wisdom and your lessons during my day and your metaphors that you use. And one thing I love about your book, so you do write about rare starfish, and you also write about some maybe on the other side of the coin, toxic relationships or those type of things. And I think that with either of those extremes, one thing your book does, I believe, that is so powerful, is you help people bring more of an awareness to their lives. So, and even with your different sections of your book, one of them is adrift. I think so many of us, we can kind of just be adrift in our lives without really having a sense of awareness or purpose about where we're going. And I think your book is so just unique and beautiful in the way that it helps gently and in a really fun way help people bring like this awareness to their own lives. And I just I've actually read your book multiple times since then. So I read it as it was being written, and then I've loved to just read the actual hard copy too. And I think every time I read it, I just like different chapters speak to me more strongly. And so to me, that's one of the beautiful things about a book that like yours that has such wisdom is that it has room to kind of grow with you during your life. And I definitely think it's going to be one of those books like that for me, that I will just pull off the shelf at different points in my life when it's like, you know, I need to go on that voyage with Lenore again and kind of remember some of these lessons that and I also love, I want to say too, maybe you could talk a little bit about the way that you had a lot of bravery in using real life examples from your own life in the book. And maybe you could talk a little bit about what that was like, because I think that is one of the hardest things to do as a writer, is to really get into that emotional territory.
Absolutely. I think that was the scariest thing about writing this book, was the actual fact that I had to put a little of myself into it. In order for this book to be authentic and for me to be able to write authentically about it, there needed to be a part of me in it. And I didn't want it to feel like it was another one of these books that is just full of research and statistics. And, I could have put a lot of that in there, but it was important for me for people to see me as a part of that journey as well, and to see that I've actually lived what I'm telling you. And in order to do that, and in order for people then to feel brave enough to go ahead and do the things I did, I needed to speak from experience as well. And that doesn't by any means make me an expert on anything, but there are a couple of really big things that really impacted my life. And, well, at the time, not in a good way, but looking back on it now, had I not gone through those things, I would not be the person I am today, and I definitely would not have written that book. So, the couple of things that I guess I drew a lot of my experience from was firstly going through postnatal depression or postpartum depression with my kids, and I went through that with all three of my kids. It got progressively worse as I had my third child, and it was after I had my daughter that things got so bad, and I just felt that if I don't do something about this now, I'm going to destroy my family. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
And I wanted to take steps to be able to help myself. And I went through all the processes of seeing people, professionals to help. I was on medication, but nothing was making me, it was kind of masking a lot, and it wasn't helping me actually dive deeper and get to the root cause of what was going on. So I started looking for other ways to help myself, and that's when I came across meditation and journaling and music. So music features in my book for a very good reason. And a lot of these things really helped me look for other ways to cope and get myself out of this very dark hole that I was in. So once I was feeling brave enough, and I took those steps, and I was starting to feel strong enough again, then I went through losing my dad. So my dad passed away very suddenly, and that just, I felt like I'd just gone back to zero again. And it took so much work to make sure that I kind of didn't go back into that dark hole again. So I really had to draw on all these strategies to help me pull me out of that, because I could feel myself going back down. Because my dad, I guess, my dad was a rare starfish, and he was my rock. He was one of the only people who understood what I was going through. And I knew that I could go to him, and not that he would always have the answer, but he never ever made me feel like what I was going through was irrational, or, you know, that there was something wrong with me, or, you know, so losing that person from your life, it's just like losing one of your limbs and you have to learn how to move around without that limb. So that was a big thing for me. Those two circumstances, two life events are really what I think was important to talk about in this book, so people didn't look at me and think, which I think was a common thing, is that on the outside it might look like I have my life together, but on the inside it was a completely different story. So it was really important for me to get that message across, that it's never as it seems, and that in order for me to make a difference to someone else, then I needed to be brave enough to speak about the things that I guess I felt ashamed of at the time, but now I see it as such a necessary part of life, and such an important part of life, because it's just totally shaped or reshaped where I'm headed and what I'm doing now. So yeah.
It's beautiful. And you speak about it so beautifully, just as you write about it so beautifully. And I feel like your dad is there in the book. We talked about him a lot as you were writing. And I agree that I think also it's part of what makes your book so universal is this isn't just a book for women or for mothers or for people of a certain age, or, you know, gender, it's for everybody. I mean, and I think the one thing, as you write about in your book, the one thing that's guaranteed in this life is that you're going to go through hard times. You're going to have to deal with grief and loss, and these times when you just feel like your entire ship is shipwrecked and you have to rebuild. And so I think that was something else about your book that feels so different to me than a lot of other books I've read that are more geared to maybe a specific situation in time. Whereas your book, I feel, for me at least, it's become like a different way of kind of seeing the world. It's sort of shifted my perspective. So no matter what I'm going through, either now or in the future, it provides it's kind of like a compass that I think will help the reader navigate through those hard times that will inevitably come for all of us. And so there's this universal feeling that there's a connection with everyone around us, because like you say, we're just seeing the outsides, and we realize that, you know, we're not seeing the insides of even just those people that we interact with on a daily basis. And so there's a sense of like belonging and, you know, being connected to everybody else that you really brought out for me as well from reading your book.
It was really important also that I wanted this book not to be one of those books that you read once and it ends up on the bookshelf and you don't refer back to it ever again. So the way I wrote it, also having short chapters, was that you could pick this book up at any time and just open it up, and whatever chapter you happen to fall on is the one that you're meant to read at that point. And it is something that you can refer back to. And it's quite funny now that I have a lot of people now using my book against me.
Oh,
so
no.
when I'm going through, you know, when I'm not in the right mindset, or I say something that's contradictory to what I wrote in the book, you know, my husband or my mum or someone will go, but didn't you write about that in your book? That's not what you said in your book. So it's actually a really, really good accountability partner having this book, and for me even to pick it up and refer back to it, and go back, okay, what did I write again? I need to just, have a bit of a reality check here and go and see, hold myself accountable to what I wrote, and then, my mindset changes. So.
I love that. I love that. Something that never would think about before becoming an author, that your words can be used against you.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Quite often.
Well, and that also makes me think about something with the writing process, that often the role that I see as being a writing coach is providing accountability and providing some structure. Like, we work on an outline together and we kind of are there through the process. But also, I think that a big part of being a writing coach, at least in my philosophy, is simply to hold up a mirror to my clients and help them see all of the wisdom that they have inside of them. And so, like, for you, I mean, your book, it was all there, in you, and you had all the answers, and all of these words just started gushing forth once we started with the process. And so to me, that is just really neat to see. And I think sometimes people might feel like I've heard it called imposter syndrome. Like, oh, who am I to think I could be an author? And I just wonder if maybe you wanted to talk a little bit about that, and maybe also if your perspective on yourself has shifted at all now that you're an author of this book, and maybe how that's changed.
Oh, yeah, look, I'm no stranger to imposter syndrome. That even after I published the book, I was just like, is it too late to take it back and not have it out there? Because, what are people going to think? And but just touching on what you did say about having you as accountability and holding up a mirror, that was so important in the whole process for me, was knowing that I had someone waiting for the next chapter. So it was quite, I don't know, it was quite amazing, the whole process. I mean, this book was done in less than 4 months. And it was writing every single day, because I knew that there was someone eagerly awaiting that next chapter. But once I actually started writing, it was amazing how those ideas started to flow.
Yeah.
And the more the ideas started to flow, like, the more I was diving deeper and deeper into my own life, how I felt about things, how I looked at life. So yes, you held up a mirror to me in the writing process, because I had to have a really good look at myself and go, well, if you're going to write a book about life and how people perceive life and bring their awareness to how they approach life, then you really need to take a good look at yourself first. And that was huge. And it was hard, and it was devastating in some parts, because there were some things I thought I looked at and I felt ashamed in a way of, I guess, some of the paths I took, the way I thought about people, the way I thought about life, and that was really hard to come to terms with first. But if I had not done that part first, then this book wouldn't have been written. I wouldn't have been able to finish it. I probably still would have been sitting on it, and trying to figure out the best way to say things and sound like I knew what I was talking about, and but I am a very different person to who I was a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because going through that whole writing process and then talking with you every week
Mm-hmm.
was such a huge help, because I'd put all my thoughts down on paper, and then by the end of the week I'm just like, oh, you almost feel drained a little bit,
Yeah.
because you feel like you've just put your soul onto this page and you're not quite sure whether it's the right thing to say, or whether I should not be so vulnerable and not really show people, not wear my heart on my sleeve.
Mm-hmm.
And but going through that and talking through it with you was such a huge help. And then seeing your reaction to the chapters then made me feel like, yeah, you know what, I'm doing the right thing. And it just made me feel so much more confident and ultimately proud of my journey and where it's brought me.
Yes, I am so proud of you. And I think your writing is so authentic, and you did the hard work to really create the book that was in your heart. So it wasn't just, like you were saying, that surface level. You really dug down deep. And this book that you've written is just such a testament to the hard work that you did. And I think that is one of the wonderful things about writing that we carry with us throughout our lives. So not just with one book or the next book, but just in general, that writing can be such a lovely tool to use to find those answers that we have within ourselves, that maybe it's like we know that wisdom, but it's not quite coming forth until we write it down. And how has you mentioned that you're a completely different person than you were a year ago, and I'd love to hear about just your life too with this book. Maybe you could talk a little about the fabulous launch party that you had, or any other things that have come about with this book, like what it has been like to have it out in the world. I know we touched upon the scariness of that, but I'm hoping that there is also some joy there and excitement there too.
Oh, look, absolutely. The feedback I've received has far outweighed the fear that has come with it. So I guess with the launch, that was by far probably one of the scariest things I think I've done, because initially I didn't think there were going to be many people coming along, and that of course is my lack mentality coming in. I was just like, oh, no one's going to come to this, what if I only get 5 people, and it's probably just going to be my family that's there and supporting me. And I had over 100 people turn up to my book launch, which was just phenomenal. And it was family, it was friends, it was friends of friends, and it was the most beautiful day. I went along with the whole theme of the water, and so I hired a venue that was right on the water on Sydney Harbour, and it was a beautiful sunny day, and we had there was drinks out on the balcony, and I had themed things around with anchors and netting and little swag bags of things that fit in with the book. And it was just such a joy to have all these beautiful people in one room who were there to, I don't think they were there just because they felt they needed to be there to support me. They were there celebrating with me, and ultimately that's what it was. It was a celebration of a very long journey when you think about it, even though the writing journey was short in comparison. But it was so beautiful. And then having all these people line up to have their books signed, and I kind of got a little touch of what it was like to be famous for half an hour whilst I was signing books. It was just beautiful. And then what was even more amazing after that book launch is that I got home and the messages started to come through from people already. I already had someone who messaged and said, I'm already halfway through your book. And this was only like 2 hours after the book launch. I had someone message later that night and said, I finished the book.
Wow.
They just said I couldn't put it down. I needed to just keep reading it. And then it has been a steady stream of messages and people posting on social media even. And, it's not a big deal. Like, it doesn't cost people anything to do it. But a lot of people have gone out of their way to put it up on Facebook or Instagram and give me a mention and give it a plug and, give it a recommendation, and things like that have just meant the absolute world to me. Because a big part, as a lot of you would know, a big part of it is marketing the book afterwards and getting it out into the world. And unless you've got someone who really knows what they're doing and pushing it for you, most of the time it falls to yourself to get it out there. And so having people put things up on social media has been amazing, and the things that they've had to say. And I got a message very recently, a couple of weeks ago, from a beautiful lady who was at my book launch, and she wrote me this big, beautiful message about how much the book has changed her and impacted her life. And I thought, yes, my intention was that it would change just one life, and I've done it. So well, I haven't done it, the book did it. So but that's when I felt like, whatever comes next is just, it's an added bonus for me. But what I set out to do, I achieved. So it's, afterwards you worry a lot about how it's going to be received, and let's be realistic, it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. If the self-help genre is not for you, that's perfectly fine. That's like, there's a lot of books that I wouldn't think to pick up. It's not what I enjoy reading, but you do worry, I think, a little bit about, I think it's more so, it's not the people I don't know in the world. It's not so much about, what's everyone in the world going to think? It's the people closest to you that you think, how's my family going to take it? What's their reaction going to be? I think that's what I worried about the most, was the people closest to me, was their reaction. And so far so good.
Good.
I've had beautiful feedback. So, but in the end, that I wasn't writing it for approval, and I wasn't writing it so I could get all these accolades from people I know. It was just, my intention was that I wanted to make it a little bit easier for someone else to go through the process and maybe prevent a lot of what I had to sort through in order to get where I am. So
I just love that. And that was another thing that I loved about working with you, is that you have this deeper meaning for the book. We go through writing your manifesto is one of the first things that I do with a new client. And with your book, I just could tell that it was this message that was inside of you that, needed to get out, and that you wanted to use your own experiences to help others. And you have done that. You continue to do that. And I think it's just such an authentic part of who you are as a human being, is a helper. And I want to make sure that we tell people where they can get your wonderful book. So your website, lenorepearson.com, you have an easy tab that people can click on about the book, where they can find all the different ways to order it, whether you're in Australia or the US or the UK or wherever you are in the world. Where else would it be good for people to connect with you? Maybe your Instagram?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, so it's Lenore Pearson _holistic, and on Facebook as well. You can follow me, Lenore Pearson, but if you want to be more in touch with like the work I do and what's going on with the book, then it's Artemis Meditation and Holistic Counselling on Facebook.
Perfect. The book is Self-Assured. It's definitely, I cannot recommend it highly enough. It's one of my favorites, and I think it is just going to continue to change more and more lives. Is there anything else that you wanted to share, or just any final words of advice or wisdom that you wanted to leave people with before we sign off?
Firstly, if you're on that edge of, do I write a book, don't I write a book, just do it. Just don't even think about it. Just start writing. I was just, every time an idea came to my head, I wrote it down. Whether it made sense or not, it doesn't matter. Just get it on a piece of paper, and just dive straight in. And my second bit of advice is get yourself a coach. Get yourself a book coach. I can guarantee you that this book would not be written now if it wasn't for Dallas, and you know, and it's not, and she's just not about the coaching. It was a friendship as well. It was you know, she wasn't there telling me what I had to do. It was guiding me and encouraging me and pulling me back from the edge when I was like, I can't do this, I don't think I can do this. And she's like, yes, you can. You can totally do this. So, but having someone there that you can talk to and you can bounce ideas off is essential in the process, I think, because writing can be a very lonely process sometimes, and especially when you're in your head and you know, trying to get things out or over processing things. It is really important to have someone there to talk it through, and especially someone who's been through it before. So yeah, and I am just forever grateful to you every day for allowing me to bring this book into the world.
I am so grateful that I got to be with you on the journey. I just love you so much, and I can't recommend Lenore's book enough. Everybody, go buy a copy of Self-Assured, and just, you'll be so glad that you did.